Horror movies, the greatest genre of all. And it's Halloween. Again, happy Halloween, by the way. So let's talk about, in honor of Halloween, the big day itself, and horror being a big genre, the greatest genre of them all. Let's have the top 6 greatest horror franchises of all time. And again, yes, it's just me and my opinion, so it's not a definitive thing. Maybe someone else disagrees or would rearrange it another way or add something, take away something, yada yada. But it's just me. How dare I have my opinion? But here it is, the top 6 greatest horror franchises of all time. Let's begin with number 6. Child's Play, the Chucky series. Started in 1988, American horror film directed and co-written by Tom Holland, also known for his work in, my personal favorite, the cult vampire film, the greatest vampire film, Fright Night. And other films such as penning the sequel to Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, produced by David Kirshner, screenplay basically created by Don Mancini, who's been with this since the franchise started and is still working on today. A great series about Charles Lee Ray, played by the great Brad Dourif, a fugitive serial killer that transfers himself into a good guy doll calling himself Chucky. I'm your friend to the end. And then we have, from that one, from when he tries to go after Andy and his mom, and Chris Sarandon playing the detective, who was also our lead vampire in Fright Night. Spawning more sequels, Child's Play 2, Child's Play 3, and then many years later, Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. And then finally, direct-to-video releases, while not as good as the other ones I think, but I still think pretty good, Curse and Cult of Chucky. I will not ever acknowledge that horrible, unnecessary garbage of a reboot remake that spits on Mancini's work, everyone behind it, the cast, crew, people who are keeping this alive to this day. No, we don't acknowledge that garbage film that was a spit in the face on this while this is still going on. And again, there's a television show in the works. Pretty popular series. Even though Bride and Seed went to more of a humorous route, over-the-top route, which I didn't mind. I liked it. I liked Tiff. And I thought it was kind of cool seeing Killer Doll with his family going at it. That's kind of pretty funny, but I like the dark humor and the over-the-top stuff. But a great series that's still thriving since 1988. It's still going, and I believe it's still going strong. Child's Play, the Chucky series. Number 5. Scream, directed by Wes Craven, the great Wes Craven, and you may see something else of his on this list. Another creation, perhaps. Written by Kevin Williamson, the Scream franchise. The Scream franchise brought back the slasher genre, but kind of did a lot of meta stuff there, influenced by Williamson's passion for horror films, especially Halloween. That might be on here too, who knows? But it takes itself giving you the rules. Yeah, it's taking, not really jabs at it, but it's gone with exploiting the cliches upon the films, letting us know, again, the rules. You must follow these rules to survive a horror movie. And then giving us more sequels, Scream 2, Scream 3, and then years later in 2011, Scream 4, which, Craven and them were trying to do another thing, but sadly, rest in peace to the great Wes Craven. We only got 4 films, and then TV shows, the first series, then there was one recently this year, was 6 episodes. Still is not as good as, the films. The films were, they basically revitalized the horror genre, brought it back, the 90s, gave us, the love for the horror genre again, the slasher films again, reinvented it, again, giving us all, it was smart, it was self-aware, and it wasn't just your regular, slasher film. And there was a good whodunit mystery in there. And again, with the whole satirizing stuff, being self-aware, and telling us how horror films are like. And then what really stood out was, again, for this one, you like the killers most of the time, their personas, those characters, the ones that stand out. This one here, it wasn't much about Ghostface, the killer. It was more about the character himself, played by, Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Jamie Kennedy, etc. It was great. To this day, love all the characters. Very well done. I think all 4 films on there, and that's why it is on this list as the greatest horror franchises. Scream. Number 4. Friday the 13th. I'll let my buddy take control of this one, Eric. So what do you think? Please tell us what you think about this one and why this is such a great series and why it stood out so much.
Alright, I'm here to give my thoughts on the Friday the 13th franchise. I just think that I see Jason as more of a tank and him being more kind of unstoppable than Michael Myers. And what I liked about that one, that's the whole series as a whole, not just the first one, is that there was something interesting in each one. Whether it was his mother was the killer in the first one, or he was the killer and wore a sack hat, or he got his hockey mask in the third one, or he died in part 4, or was a copycat in part 5, or he was resurrected in part 6, or basically battled Carrie in part 7, or basically went on a boat the whole time, and basically went to Manhattan at the end of the movie, or he went to hell and had weird like snakes coming out of his mouth, but even that was different though, and everything. It was just different. He was jumping from body to body. Or if he went to space in Jason X, even though I thought that one sucked, but I wish I could bury that. It's humiliating. Or if he fought Freddy Krueger, then like the big crossover.
I agree. And for me personally, the first one is more known for the ending, which is really great, but I liked everything afterwards. Again, I like the over-the-top stuff, and it seemed to have gotten more over the top and ridiculous as the series went along, especially with, like, as my buddy was saying, Jason is another icon. He's one of the unholy trinity, and he's still to this day memorable, and everyone talks about and loves, and that's played to this day. From 1980, the American slasher film, Friday the 13th. Number 3, Halloween. Yes, I know you're probably thinking this should be number 1. Again, this is my personal list, even though this would be, like, honestly, I feel like these next 3 are all tied at number 1, but I had to do, like, a definitive list and squeak people by just a little bit to nudge it, especially number 1 spot, which just barely beats out the other 2. But Halloween 1978, the film that started it all, basically, directed by John Carpenter, produced by Deborah Hill, screenplay by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, rest in peace. This is one of the greatest franchises of them all. What do you think, Eric? Bring some knowledge into here, too?
Halloween, one that kind of launched all these other horror properties. What I liked about that one is that I think it started out as a solid original, but I think the sequels kind of lacked, though. But what I liked about, especially the first one, is that how artistic it is and had, like, really interesting cinematography, and, they invented the Steadicam and all that stuff, and it just had an interesting concept. Probably the first time we've seen, like, almost like a supernatural, like, type boogeyman. Yeah, it was, like, really kind of, we really didn't get a lot of movies like that back then, so that's what I probably liked about that one most.
And yes, I believe, the latest film in 2018 proves that people still love Michael Myers, and he is still a popular icon and one of the most iconic faces of the horror genre. And again, if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have a lot of the movies on this list. This is pretty much the pinnacle of horror, of Halloween movies in general. Horror, slasher in general, the Halloween series. Number 2, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven's masterpiece. Again, I told you he'd be on this list. Directed by Wes Craven, produced by Robert Shea, written by Wes Craven. This was one of the most creative, most inventive, most original horror films, slasher films you can ever think of. The whole thing about a killer in your dreams. It was brilliant. And again, Heather Langenkamp was the greatest, rival, nemesis towards Freddy. And Robert Englund, he is Freddy. That's why the 2010 one fails. I don't acknowledge that. That thing was horrible in every way for him. It's amazing how 2010s looks horrible compared to something from 1984. The special effects wise, these movies all had great special effects. And then that one, when they tried to recreate it, it was embarrassing. But Nightmare on Elm Street series, all of them, all the sequels, and even Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is my personal favorite of them all, which is just, you can tell this is basically, when he was doing this, is like, this is what Scream is going to be, wink, type of idea. So this is just brilliance in every way, shape, or form. Robert Englund is the greatest horror icon. That's why he's my favorite. I love everyone else, but Freddy Krueger has always been my top favorite. And it's just, Freddy is the coolest. He's got the personality, he's scary, and it's just well done. All the movies, I think, are exceptional. Well, maybe except for Freddy's Dead, but Eric, your little take on it?
As a whole, I kind of see all the movies, it's like, I guess they really don't change. I guess all these horror movies don't change, but what I liked about that is, like, what we were talking about, Robert Englund and everything. You actually had a killer that was actually unique, that was actually more comical, or, I don't know, just more kind of emotive, actually, not just a silent killer like, like we've had with, like, Michael, Jason, Leatherface. And I think there's something scary about you feeling so, comfortable when you want to go to bed, and, if you're not safe there, then that's, and you're in danger, that's actually a pretty scary concept, actually. And that's what I liked about Nightmare on Elm Street. That was actually one I thought I would struggle with, but actually I just think the whole concept of being hunted in your sleep was a pretty original idea, actually, and everything like that. And Wes Craven gave us that. May he rest in peace. He gave us, I don't think he really wanted more sequels to that, but just standalone. But it's still part of our pop culture, so it's still remembered. And
honorable mentions. These ones, just because they just, I can't include them in the list because their sequels just aren't anything that makes it as good, makes it a good franchise. It's like just one film or two films out of the series. So let's start off with Hellraiser. 1 and 2, great films. Clive Barker's original 2 films, I think those are really great movies. Just shame that they kind of screwed it up, and especially with licensing the rights right now, where they just don't give a crap about it anymore. It's a shame. It's a great series. Pinhead is a great character. It was just a good series, those first 2. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The first one is probably one of the greatest horror, obviously, it's one of the greatest horror films of all time. Probably one of the best films of all time in general. But again, the sequels, all the rebooting, the prequeling, they just don't work and compare as great and as perfect as a film as the original. And because there's only 2 films on this, I'm not counting the remake, even though they did a good job on it. Everyone involved did a pretty nice job, but it just pales in comparison to the original 2 films in this. That's why it's just 2 films. Fright Night. As I mentioned earlier, Fright Night, probably my favorite horror movie of all time, and probably my favorite movie of all time. It's in that top 10, top 5 of all time. And you have the great duo of Charlie and Peter Vincent. And Peter Vincent, again, rest in peace, perfectly played out by Roddy McDowall. Along with Dr. Loomis, done brilliantly by Donald Pleasance, goes up there with Peter Vincent and Ashley Williams. Fright Night. And the second one, go check it out. They're great films. I wish we could have got that third film. Probably the greatest character in all of history. Those 2, they can duke it out as my favorites. And now, on with the number 1. Evil Dead. Sam Raimi, again, as I've been saying, Wes Craven, John Carpenter, these people are geniuses. My absolute favorites when it comes to horror films, because they created some of the, if not the greatest films and franchises of all time. Sam Raimi, Evil Dead. Evil Dead, 1981, straight up just showed you what you can do on a shoestring budget, low budget horror, just with the passion for it and with the right people and the right love for everyone involved to make this film. And it was more scary, it had great effects, it was unique. The Deadites are one of the most unique things, and of course you have the great Bruce Campbell, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, character in all of film history, Ashley Williams. I know he's hanged up his chainsaw, but I wish he could just do one more to finish off the series. I mean, he even got a series for 3 seasons, unjustly canceled, by the way, on Starz. 3 wonderful seasons. I mean, it's even got a musical. Go check out the musical. It is amazing. It is brilliant. Evil Dead 2, everyone's favorite by far. 1987, then Army of Darkness, 1992. It's one of the most quotable movies, the most entertaining movies. They would start to get more ridiculous, over the top. They're fun, they're entertaining, and Bruce Campbell is the greatest, and he really just shines and steals the show from everything. Him with Raimi are a great duo, and this thing, to this day, still stands the test of time, and we all know how Bruce Campbell is still Hail to the King, because this is great. Even the remake, 2013, was still pretty good. It's still, I'd still rather have more involving Bruce Campbell, but it was still a really good film, and if they want to do a second one, then do it. But this is the greatest horror franchise of all time, and in my opinion, probably the greatest franchise of all time. Evil Dead, it can do no wrong. It is brilliant. All the films, there's comics of it, video games, again, a musical, and then a TV show. It is so great. Brilliance, and that is why it is the greatest horror franchise of all time, period. Thanks for giving us some insight and your knowledge and being a fan of this, and it's always good to hear from someone who's, passionate and knows about this kind of stuff. And
I love reading trivia and everything like that, too. So, yeah, I'm sorry, man, go ahead.
So it's good. Thanks again.
Thank you
for being there and telling us, and we'll see you all next time.
See you guys.
I guess that's a good way to end it. And there you go. Hope you like it. Please like, share, subscribe for more, and happy Halloween.
There you go. Happy Halloween. Boo-ha.
Perfect. Boo. Taku J. Sign up.